further down the table then, who do you think is going to struggle, and who do you think is going to maybe overachieve this season?
I mean, I look at Brentford. I know you mentioned them before. They're a team that I think could overachieve this year because I genuinely feel like their style is more suited to the Premier League, where teams sit off slightly more, maybe allow you to have a little bit better, possession and say, come at us and we will try and be able to defend it. A very set style of football. They haven't added huge Premier League experience. They have added some top flight experience. Maybe the squad didn't have, but I think they already had a good set of players there at Brentford. Remember, they were knocking on the door for multiple seasons before they'd come up to the Premier League. Settled under their manager, Thomas Frank, a really good approach to the game as well. And I think the way that they go about it will help them in the Premier League. All of that being said, I am worried that they could be a bit like Norwich the last time they were in the top flight, played really good football, lost pretty much every week. That is my major concern for them. So I'd like to say they'd be overachievers. I think if they stayed in the Premier League, for me, that would be overachieving, because in your heart of hearts, you think they would still probably be one of the favourites for relegation. But I think they're my pick. Who would you think is going to overachieve?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Brighton. I think last season they were actually quite unlucky. Hipster's choice, of course, because their XG last year was really, really good. And I've got a hammer in my background. Therefore, I am clearly a hipster. And thus, I will be going for Brighton this one. I think if they get a bit of luck, I think their recruitment is always really interesting. Enoch Mwepu from RB Salzburg. RB Salzburg have been absolutely pillaged over the transfer window, by the way. So many of their players coming over to the Premier League. But I think he could be a great player for them. Ben White going, I think, hurts them somewhat, but probably not as much as people might think. And they've kept a hold of Basuma, which I think is huge for them. If they can start scoring the goals that they create, I think they could have a really, really good season. As I said earlier, I think Villa might be a good shout as well. In terms of teams struggling, I think Watford might actually do better than people think. I'm looking at the likes of Southampton. I'm really concerned about them. If Armstrong doesn't hit the ground running, then they conceded so many goals last season. I think it was only West Brom who conceded more. And Norwich, I mean, they've just signed another striker, the American Sargent, but it's not enough. To lose Buendia, I really think, as prolific as they were as a team last season, it was hugely down to Buendia. And I think if you look at the context of the world we're living in right now, those teams that have gone up, they're not spending the same kind of money that they do normally. So I think they might have a chance because the other teams in the Premier League are doing a similar thing. But Norwich, they are kind of digging their heels in a little bit, haven't recruited enough. And I think they're really, really going to struggle this season.
I mean, I tend to agree. I think the promoted sides will probably go straight back down. But I agree with you. Southampton, Armstrong is not a direct replacement for Danny Ings. There's no guarantee he will come into the top flight and score goals. Che Adams, isn't a prolific goal scorer. I think they've got the youngster on loan from Chelsea as well, unknown quantity. So, I'm always wary about teams who bring on more and more and more championship players. For me, there's a risk that you eventually end up with a championship team that goes down. So I think Crystal Palace, who have brought some of the best players in the championship, all I'm saying is they are very good players and they're good acquisitions. And I think it's a positive for Crystal Palace. But if they don't work straight away, you end up with 3 or 4 players in your team just finding their way as youngsters who haven't played in the top flight before. And that could, with a new manager, Patrick Vieira, and of course, we know that things weren't great for him in France. People expected a lot more. Who knows? Could be another Ronald de Boer situation. So fingers crossed for Palace as well, because I think they could be one of the teams that underachieve. Hi, I'm Hugh Wisencroft from ESPN's Football Forecast. Make sure you're subscribed. You can follow all of our predictions throughout the season and get some other great analysis from our big names as well.